Seeing Red, a geography of the wolf. There are 3 red garments in this story: a hood, a tie, a hat. The first belongs to a fairy tale. The second belonged to a state myth. The third belongs to a meme. Little Red Riding Hood wears the first. Pavlik Morozov, or rather the public Soviet version of him, wears the second. A son in a viral MAGA hat meme wears the third. All 3 figures are marked in red. That matters. Red is not a quiet colour. It announces. It calls attention to itself. It turns fabric into signal. A person wearing red becomes legible at a distance, to the wolf, to the state, to the political eye already hungry for a sign. And that is where the trouble begins. 1. The fairy tale. In the oldest of these stories, the geography is simple. The child in red leaves the home and enters the forest. The wolf waits outside. The danger belongs to the road, the trees, the shadowed place beyond the village. The home may be imperfect. The mother may be foolish for sending the girl alone. Grandmother's house may prove less safe than advertised. But the structure remains clear. The child sets out from home into danger. The wolf belongs to the woods. That distinction is one of the basic promises of the fairy tale. The world may be dangerous, and the child may be vulnerable, disobedient, naive, curious, or simply unlucky. But the child first has a place from which to set out. Home is not heaven. It rarely is. But it is supposed to be something other than the forest. 2. The myth. The second red garment comes from a darker kind of story. Not a fairy tale, but a state myth. Pavlik Morozov was a real boy, though the real boy matters less here than the figure made from him. The Soviet myth needed Pavlik less as a child than as a lesson. According to the official version, he denounced his father for the sake of the new order and was murdered by reactionary relatives for his ideological purity. Whether that story was true almost does not matter for present purposes. What matters is what the myth wanted children to learn. The family was not the final loyalty. The state was. The geography has shifted. The wolf no longer waits in the forest. He can cross the threshold of the home and stand at the child's shoulder in the form of the state. The pioneer red tie or neckerchief was not just clothing. It was a sign of prior belonging. Before the child belonged to himself, before he belonged to family, before he belonged to the messy private world of quarrels, tenderness, embarrassment, food, fear, and ordinary household nonsense, he belonged to the future, to the collective, to history, which is what adults call ideology when they want children to salute it. Pavlik became the public child. Not Pavel, not a murdered village boy, not a son, not a brother, not a child who may have been trapped in family misery, adult pressure, poverty, revenge, or confusion. The family wound was converted into a lesson plan. And here is the interesting thing. Russian and Soviet humor made jokes about almost everything. Lenin became a joke. Stalin became a joke. Beria became a joke. Dzerzhinsky, Chapayev, Hitler, Muller, Stierlitz, the Soviet answer to James Bond, Ivan the Terrible, Vovochka, the Russian version of Little Johnny, even death itself, all eventually passed through the black machinery of Russian laughter. There are, strictly speaking, jokes about Pavlik Morozov. There are jokes about almost everything. That is one of the few redeeming features of human civilization. But Pavlik Morozov never became a joke. That distinction matters. He never became a comic type, a reusable figure, a machine for generating absurd situations. Chapayev could be moved anywhere. Stierlitz could be dropped into any deadpan scenario. Lenin could be miniaturized, Stalin grotesquely reduced. Beria dragged into the filth where he belonged. But Pavlik stayed too close to the wound. A joke about Stalin can shrink Stalin. A joke about Beria can drag terror down into dirt. But a joke about Pavlik risks doing something uglier. It risks accepting the original premise, that the child belongs to ideology before he belongs to himself. Which brings us to the third red garment. 3. The meme. A meme has been circulating. It is text only, and it reads, "My son is taking part in a social experiment. He has to wear a MAGA hat and see how people react. So far, he's been spit on, punched, and had a bottle thrown at him. I'm curious to see what happens when he goes outside." The first reading is easy. That is why the meme works. The opening is cinematic. Social experiment, see how people react, spit on, punched, bottle thrown. The prose builds a public scene, a crowd, a street, a boy in a hat surrounded by hostile strangers. The reader sees the movie before the punchline arrives and pulls the rug. The geography turns out to be wrong. The boy never made it outside. The hostility came from inside the household. That is the first bait and switch. There is another, and we will come to it. The joke reads two ways depending on which side of the room you stand on. From the left, it is a joke about Trumpists pathetic enough to be hated in their own homes. Even the family won't have them. From the right, it is a joke about a left so consumed by political hatred that it will assault its own family over a hat. The same household appears in both readings. Only the moral changes. One side laughs at Trumpists for being hated. The other laughs at anti-Trumpists for being hateful. One way or another, someone wears the forbidden hat and is attacked before he even leaves the house. And that is the punchline. The violence came from home. The joke is, in its cheap way, a good joke. The setup misdirects, the punchline lands. The meme has the clean construction that compact things need in order to travel. A reader who laughs on first encounter has not failed at anything. The funniness is real. It is also the data point. The question is, what makes it funny? Read it again. Slowly. The narrator is not a horrified parent. He does not say, "My son was attacked." He does not say, "I stopped it." He does not say, "I made a terrible mistake." He says he is curious to see what happens when the son goes outside. Curious. That is the word, or the posture beneath the words. Not alarm, not guilt, not even surprise. Curiosity. We do not know who staged this experiment. The meme leaves it ambiguous, and the ambiguity is part of what it reveals. The experiment may have been assigned by an institution, or it may have come from inside the family. The text does not decide. It does not have to. The household responds the same way either way. The hat is what it sees. Whatever the experiment's origin, its framing creates an alibi. In one version, he built the alibi. In the other, he borrowed it from outside the family and used it without alteration. Either way, the vocabulary was already there, fluent enough to absorb a household's violence into the language of observation without friction. No child was harmed in the making of this meme. The meme itself is the artifact. We read it the way we read Sophocles, taking the story seriously without taking it as history. A meme cannot make its audience laugh at a category that is not recognizable. This one lands because we recognize it as a metaphor for something real. The fictional son stands in for a structure the audience knows from the inside. The funniness is the disclosure. We laugh because we recognize. The recognition is the evidence the joke supplies, and it is sufficient evidence for what the essay is actually claiming, which is not that families are doing this in epidemic numbers, but that the language for narrating it as something other than what it is now exists in working order. The language, however, places the narrator among the wolves. He may not be the one who spat. His hand may not be the hand that punched or threw the bottle. But the joke does not require that distinction. The sentence has already done the work. He stood inside a household that turned on a family member for wearing a hat, and he describes that turning with the calm of a researcher, logging an outcome. The meme only works because he does not know what he is. Notice, while we are here, what the meme is letting us assume. It says, "my son." It does not say, "my child." We supply the child ourselves because we are designed to protect the young, and the violence in the description, spit, punch, bottle, sounds like violence done to a small body. The author of this essay has to confess that it took him several readings and a couple of early drafts to notice the assumption, even though he was actively deconstructing the text of the meme. It is part of how the meme works on us. The supplying is automatic. A reader who imagines the smallest, most vulnerable version of son is the reader most likely to feel the punchline land. But the text does not require the smallest version. The son could be 12. He could be 25. He could be 40, arriving for Thanksgiving in the wrong hat. Son covers any age, and the structure the meme depicts covers more relations than that. The brother no longer invited, the uncle who has been quietly removed from the group chat, the parent whose calls are no longer being returned. The lurid spit and bottle is the loud version of something that more often happens in silence. The hat does not have to provoke physical assault. It only has to provoke withdrawal. Either way, the household has done what the meme describes. Let the political acquire enough authority to dissolve a family bond. That is how dark humor touches the thing it should be naming as harm and is not. Not by declaring the harm openly. Evil rarely bothers with that kind of honesty. It often prefers procedure, education, experiment, discipline, justice, safety, therapy, patriotism, anti-fascism, civic responsibility, or whatever costume happens to be clean that morning. The trick is not merely to do the thing. The trick is to create a vocabulary in which the thing no longer appears as itself. Here, that vocabulary is social experiment. A family member is placed inside a political symbol. Violence follows. The person who narrates the scene describes it as observation. That is the alibi. And the audience laughs because the alibi is recognizable. We already live inside a culture fluent in the conversion of pressure into procedure. We know how to say accountability when we mean punishment, education when we mean humiliation, safety when we mean control, engagement when we mean submission. Each of those translations has its own respectable institutional housing. The HR department, the classroom, the campus advisory, the corporate town hall. None of them sound like what they are. The meme is not inventing this vocabulary. It is borrowing it, compressing it, and showing that it fits the inside of a kitchen as easily as it fits the inside of an office. The red hat does not merely sit on someone's head. It enters the eyes of the family around him and changes what they think they are seeing. They do not see a son. They do not see a brother. They do not see whatever ordinary, unfinished thing a person in a family is before the symbol arrived to settle the question. They see red. And seeing red is exactly the point. The hat is red, yes. But it also produces red, rage, alarm, moral panic, tribal sorting, the old blood rush of recognition and disgust. The hat supplies a purpose before anyone has finished thinking. To one person, it means defiance. To another, it means contamination. To another, betrayal. To another, liberation. To another, fascism. To another, America. To another, the enemy. Human beings are formally classified as Homo sapiens, thinking man. This is self-inflicted flattery. We are closer to Homo teleologicus, the purpose-hungry animal. Give us a purpose, and we will think our way backward into a justification. 4. Geography. The red hood gives the wolf a target in the forest. The red pioneer tie gives the state a license to cross the threshold and claim a child. The red MAGA hat gives the household a verdict inside the home. Pavlik's myth tells of the child who denounces the family for the political order. The meme gives us the reversed image. The family denounces one of its own for the political symbol. The vector changes. The operation does not. In both cases, the political overrides the familial and the family pays the cost. One story says, "Betray your father for the state." The other says, "Punish your son for the sign." The same old wound opens from the other side. The geography has shifted again. The wolf no longer crosses the threshold. He is already there, waiting to be unleashed. That is the real subject of the meme. The home now belongs to the wolf, and he is waiting for someone to put on the hat. That is the thing the meme reveals without understanding. It thinks it is joking about political derangement. It is actually joking about a household whose first language has become political judgment. The three garments are not equivalents, and the geography should not be allowed to flatten the difference. The pioneer tie was backed by a regime that took children from families and shot relatives who interfered. The meme is backed by nothing, by an internet joke and the laughter on either side of it. The asymmetry between an actual terror state and a viral image is enormous and ought to stay enormous. But the geography still moves, and the direction of the movement is the disquieting part. From the woods to the shoulder to the table. The wolf has been getting closer to the family for 3 stories running. The hat's politics is not the issue. The issue is that the politics has acquired enough authority inside the home to make a family member disappear. That is the purpose-hungry animal at work. Give us a strong enough symbol, and the purpose supersedes the thought. We become the wolf. Pavlik Morozov remained too close to the place where ideology entered the family and asked the child to choose, even if it only happened in a state-created myth. But the license that the myth created was real. This is why the state creates a myth in the first place. That's why the internet is full of political memes. They are the inroads for creating a license for action. They are also the first indication of the direction of that action. 5. Lupus summus. Whether you take fairy tales, state myths, jokes, or internet memes, what makes them engaging is the same. They reflect something we recognize. The wolf is somewhere in all of them, old or new. Most of the time, we are the wolf, at least partly. Sometimes more, sometimes less. Ultimately, this is what the meme and the Pavlik myth tell you, if you read them carefully. And the stories we keep telling are not just diagnostic. They also shape us and help move us in one direction or another, more wolf or less wolf. The fairy tale that puts the wolf in the forest helps keep him there. The state myth that makes Pavlik a hero helps the state cross the threshold. The meme doesn't just find the wolf at the family table, it pulls out a chair for him, and we are laughing.